button impact the debate? Also, the election warning, voters receiving threatening emails, the alleged plots by Iran and Russia stealing Americans' data. Our new reporting tonight. Record-breaking COVID surges, Illinois, Ohio, Indiana, Oklahoma, North Dakota, Montana, and Utah, all shattering single-day records for new cases today. Inside an ICU under siege, the new milestone for a major vaccine trial, and the first drug to win full FDA approval to treat COVID-19. New evacuations as wildfires explode in Colorado, one burning the equivalent of 80 football fields every minute. Ghislaine Maxwell's secret testimony revealed what she said about this photo of herself, Prince Andrew, and a girl who later said she was trafficked by Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein. The middle seat making a comeback on another major airline, how the pandemic will impact your holiday travel. And caught on camera, the heart-stopping burning car rescue. We talk to the hero tonight.
This is NBC Nightly News, the presidential debate. Here is Lester Holt.
Good evening. It is debate night, the last of this election, but with tens of millions of votes already cast. Donald Trump and Joe Biden will be making their closing pitches to a far more narrow pool than their first get-together back in September. The center of the political universe tonight, Nashville, where a mute button awaits the candidates this time. Biden appearing after several days off the campaign trail, studying, according to his campaign, and the president arriving late today with more than Mr. Biden in his sights. Allie Jackson reports.
The final face-off tonight, perhaps the final big chance to change the race for Joe Biden and President Trump.
Hopefully he's going to play by the rules. Hopefully everybody's been tested. Hopefully it's all worked out this way the rules are.
Both Biden and the president testing negative for the coronavirus today, according to aides. But before the high-stakes showdown, the president's own video on Facebook of a new interview accusing the long-running broadcast of bias, hatred, and rudeness.
A lot of people had masks.
A lot of people
and it was outside.
And you don't get up there and say, look, you know, come on. I don't want you to get sick.
CBS News defending its correspondent, but it's the president on defense tonight, trailing in most polls and talking up the economy.
This election is a choice between a Trump super recovery or a Biden steep depression.
Sources close to his campaign say aides are encouraging the president to interrupt less on the debate stage this time. And in a change, the microphones will be muted for 2 minutes at the start of each segment to allow each candidate time to speak. The president's also expected to bring up Hunter Biden and unverified emails about his business dealings, described by many intelligence experts as having hallmarks of a foreign disinformation campaign. The Biden campaign says they're ready for the attack, hoping to flip the script to argue the president's more obsessed with Biden's family than American families. The former vice president may also face questions on his refusal to announce his position on whether to expand the Supreme Court, now saying he'll create a commission to look into it.
I will ask them to, over 180 days, come back to me with recommendations as to how to reform the court system because it's getting out of whack.
Hallie's inside the debate hall. Hallie, what are we learning about strategy through the guests each side has invited?
Well, Lester, President Trump is expected to bring a former business associate of Hunter Biden's. Joe Biden is expected to bring small business owners struggling in this pandemic. And Lester, the plexiglass that was up on stage between the podiums has now been removed. The debate commission says it's no longer necessary because of both candidates' negative COVID tests. Lester.
All right, Hallie, thank you. Let's bring in our political director and moderator of Meet the Press, Chuck Todd. What are you looking for tonight, Chuck?
Well, given our experience at the first debate, I think it's fair to say all eyes are on one individual, and it's the president. He hijacked that first debate with his behavior, his sort of belligerent style. And in some ways, he's hinting that he may try to hijack the event tonight. He wants to bring a special guest. He wants to try to disrupt Joe Biden. And I think
Business associate of Hunter Biden's. Joe Biden is expected to bring small business owners struggling in this pandemic. And Lester, the plexiglass that was up on stage between the podiums has now been removed. The debate commission says it's no longer necessary because of both candidates' negative COVID tests. Lester.
All right, Hallie, thank you. Let's bring in our political director and moderator of Meet the Press, Chuck Todd. What are you looking for tonight, Chuck?
Well, given our experience at the first debate, I think it's fair to say all eyes are on one individual, and it's the president. He hijacked that first debate, sort of more respectful of the format. Certainly a whole bunch of Republicans that are sharing the ballot line with President Trump want him to be a bit more respectful of the format. But that's the problem. None of us know what to expect based on what we saw in that first debate. And if we see more of that, that's not good for President Trump.
All right, Chuck, thanks very much. Our coverage of tonight's debate, moderated by NBC's Kristen Welker, begins at 8 Eastern here on NBC. Tonight, the Treasury Department announcing sanctions against 3 new Iranian organizations in retaliation for what the U.S. says was an attempt by Iran and Russia to meddle in our election. Here's Pete Williams.
Voters in Florida and a few other states began receiving threatening emails this week that appeared to come from a far-right group called the Proud Boys, known to support President Trump, especially after he fleetingly referred to them in the first presidential debate.
Proud Boys, stand back and stand by.
The email said, "You will vote for President Trump on Election Day or we will come after you," urging recipients to change their registration to Republican.
It was incredibly threatening. Are these people actually going to come after me? Is this for real? Is this serious?
But the Director of National Intelligence says the real senders of the emails were overseas.
We have already seen Iran sending spoofed emails designed to intimidate voters, incite social unrest, and damage President Trump.
National security officials say Iran hacked into a few local U.S. voter registration databases about 2 weeks ago.
It was in a couple different municipalities, a very small number, 2 or 3, across in different parts of the United States, but it was a small amount of information.
The U.S. concluded this week that Iran was using that data to send out the phony emails. Russia Ruzi in Tehran reports the Iranians say it wasn't them.
Senior officials here are vehemently denying all accusations, saying that they don't care who the next president is because policy towards Iran will remain the same.
Iran's phony emails were relatively simple. U.S. intelligence officials say they're more worried about what might be done with the data harvested by the Russians, considered much more capable of causing trouble. Lester?
All right, Pete Williams in our Washington newsroom, thank you. And breaking tonight, the FDA has just approved remdesivir as a COVID-19 treatment. The drug, which was given to President Trump, shortens recovery time for some patients. This comes as 7 states set new daily records for COVID cases. Here's Miguel Almaguer.
This is what it looks like to enter a war zone in Utah. Inside one of the state's busiest ERs, the staff is overwhelmed, as some hospitals have no more room in their ICUs. The governor calls his state one of the worst COVID hotspots in the world.
Some days you go to work and you really hope that just someone doesn't pass away on your shift.
So many states and a growing number of cities are in crisis. In Chicago, a return to restrictions where beginning tomorrow, the city is ordering all bars, restaurants, and non-essential businesses to close by 10 p.m., also asking groups be limited to 6 and no longer gather after that same hour.
People letting their guard down and they're getting infected and they're giving it to their families.
As we average some 60,000 new cases and 700 deaths a day, the Mayo Clinic is trying to relieve stress on hospitals, sending COVID patients a box of equipment to monitor them remotely.
We're helping reduce the amount of burden that the emergency departments and the hospitals are seeing, but also we're keeping patients isolated at home.
Today, the FDA approved remdesivir as the first COVID treatment. Doctors say it can reduce virus load and get patients out of the hospital quicker.
But Minnesota, Iowa, and Wisconsin are already reporting record death tolls. Brandy Saki Boyd lost her parents just days after their 50th wedding anniversary.
We did vacations together and holidays, and they were just fun and happy people, and they loved their grandkids.
Tonight, one family's grief.
And happy people, and they love their grandkids.
Tonight, one family's grief in a nation full of loss. Miguel Almaguer, NBC News.
In Colorado, exploding wildfires are forcing thousands of people from their homes. With two of the largest fires in the state's history spreading out of control, more residents have been told to be ready to flee. Here's NBC's Steve Patterson.
Yeah, there's a road that leads right here, boss.
Overnight, firefighters racing against a raging wall of flames.
I want everybody out of that town in 5 minutes.
Locked in a desperate scramble to save lives while struggling to protect their own.
You need to get moving now. That fire's coming over you.
The so-called East Troublesome Fire exploding, at times erupting at a rate of 6,000 acres an hour. That's nearly 80 football fields per minute.
The winds were strong, the fire behavior was strong. It was a challenging day.
Shutting down Rocky Mountain National Park, forcing thousands to flee.
It's getting worse.
Homeowner Carrie Ann Fain told to evacuate as the flames came rushing in.
It's bad. It's really bad.
Documenting the harrowing escape out of town. Meanwhile, the camera have ever seen. Steve Patterson, NBC News.
After an intense legal battle, secret testimony from Jeffrey Epstein's alleged accomplice Ghislaine Maxwell has just been unsealed. Here's Stephanie Gosk on what she said under oath about allegations that she and Epstein trafficked underage girls.
Jeffrey Epstein's associate Ghislaine Maxwell, in her own words, calling accuser Virginia Roberts-Giuffre a liar, an exaggerator, a fantasist, and absolutely true terrible person. Maxwell's deposition, unsealed by the court today, was taken in 2016 as part of a defamation lawsuit filed by Giuffre, who says Maxwell recruited her and other underage girls to have sex with Epstein. In the deposition, Maxwell repeatedly denies the allegation, her anger at times bursting through. Giuffre's attorney says Miss Maxwell very inappropriately and very harshly pounded our law firm table. I asked she take a deep breath and calm down. The 58-year-old pleaded not guilty to sex trafficking underage girls and perjury earlier this year and is being held without bail. Federal prosecutors accuse
Amy Coney Barrett is one step closer to becoming the next Supreme Court justice. Republicans on the Senate Judiciary Committee voting unanimously to advance her nomination to the full Senate, even as Democrats boycotted the vote. A final vote is expected on Monday. Another 787,000 Americans filed first-time unemployment claims last week, the pain felt by so many small business owners. NBC's Stephanie Rule spoke to some in one critical swing state about their hopes for the election.
About 100 miles apart in battleground Pennsylvania, Matt Flinchbaugh and Joshua Mast spent years building successful businesses.
To continue to grow our business, we're always looking for the next venture.
In a normal year, what would this bar look like?
Packed, shoulder to shoulder.
This year, though, is anything but normal.
This is the worst year I've had in 17 years.
We still have business, but our business is drastically down.
While their situations are similar, their politics are not. May I ask who you're voting for?
Donald Trump. I believe he'll be good for the country.
Joe Biden, because he is like us. He knows how to navigate Washington. He's done that.
Joshua Mast runs an event space and restaurant in Scranton. He got a loan through the Paycheck Protection Program to help cover costs and keep employees on staff. But with fewer events and customers...
It's about 7:30. This is normally how I start my morning, 5 days a week.
He had to get a second job at a local grocery store, then a third.
I work usually about 25 to 30 hours a week.
One of his company's biggest expenses, healthcare.
To pay for healthcare for some employees and be able to offer healthcare for other employees is so expensive. There needs to be some form of a plan for small businesses. It's one of those items that just goes up year after year.
As for the tax cuts President Trump touts, did you get a tax cut?
No. My taxes went up. He's talking about the big businesses who make lots of money that he gave tax cuts to.
The Keystone State has gone blue since 1992 in every single presidential election except 2016, when 3 counties flipped the state red, helping President Trump claim victory. Matt Flinchbaugh voted for him 4 years ago and says he was on track to open a third restaurant before the pandemic.
We're up 60 to 70% from where we were 8 years ago.
He credits the president's economic policies for that success.
People were bringing home more money in their paychecks. They were spending more money. They were going out. Especially here in central Pennsylvania, things have never been better. If he wins in November, there's no doubt I'll open a third location.
If Trump were to be reelected in November, what's the #1 thing you want him to do?
I want him to take care of the health care.
Democrats, Dems, they're like me, parasites. Pretty girls, I think. Joe Biden for parasites. No matter how you fit nigger, he's always yes.
I think that's the biggest failure of his first 4 years. There's a health care out there that we can all agree on, and we just need to figure it out.
In less than 2 weeks, we may know who will be leading that charge. Stephanie Rule, NBC News.
In just 60 seconds, the big change just announced by one major airline and what it means for you. Southwest Airlines says it will no longer block the middle seat on planes starting December 1st, leaving just Delta and Alaska keeping those seats empty. Here's Tom Costello.
Southwest and Delta have been blocking middle seats to give passengers a few feet of social distance during the pandemic. But with new research suggesting it's safe to fly, Southwest says it will sell every available seat starting December 1st. American and United are already filling middle seats. Delta plans to do so in the first half of next year.
The facts are that it is a very safe environment. And with all of the filtering techniques with air, wearing masks, facing forward, is a very healthy environment.
The entire industry is in crisis. Passenger volume down 65%, losing billions of dollars in the third quarter alone. Without more government help, tens of thousands are furloughed. Southwest is now asking its unions to take pay cuts to avoid furloughs there. Airline CEOs warn it could take years for passenger levels to pick up.
I don't know what actually drives it. It may have to be a vaccine, but at some point, business needs to travel.
Researchers from Boeing and the University of Arizona recently spread live droplets from a more stubborn virus than COVID throughout a 737, then tested the techniques airlines now use to kill COVID. Chemical disinfectants, electrostatic sprayers, UV light wands, and an antimicrobial coating all killed the virus. Encouraging news for anyone booking travel who may find good airfares but packed planes, fewer direct flights, and more connections. Tom Costello, NBC News, Washington.
Up next, we speak with the officer who jumped into action to rescue a driver. All right, we're back now with a hero officer in the dramatic rescue from a burning car caught on camera. He spoke to Gabe Gutierrez.
Is anybody in there?
The wrecked car near Davis, California was up in flames, and the responding officer knew every second counted.
Where you at?
Bystanders pointed to a woman trapped inside.
Get out right now, hurry, get out!
But she's disoriented, so he takes action. As amazing as this body camera video is, what may be even more remarkable is what Police Corporal Pang Lee did next.
You didn't tell anybody about this. Correct.
No one knew until his supervisor asked to see the video the next day.
To me, what I did was not heroic. It was just a part of what every cop is supposed to do. So after I left the scene, I continued my shift and I didn't say anything about it to anybody.
He's been a cop for more than 20 years. Never had a rescue like this one, though. The woman was later charged with DUI, but she survived thanks to him.
I quickly realized that she was not going to come out on her own volition or by her own physical strength. So that's when I decided to take matters into my own hands, literally, and pull her out of the car. You saved this woman's life. I believe I did. I believe I did, and I'm just thankful that I was in the right place at the right time.
Is anybody else in the car?
No. In this case, right guy, too. Gabe Gutierrez, NBC News.
Well, that was harrowing. Up next, how a budding young author is helping others through the pandemic. Finally, a 5-year-old boy's special message inspiring readers to stay strong during this pandemic. Here's Kevin Tibbles.
5 years old and already a published author. And he didn't even use a crayon.
There you go.
Wade Williams of Atlanta, along with his dad, has written Wade Through the Pandemic.
I like to draw pictures and write.
A pint-sized page-turner to help kids cope with COVID.
He said, well, let's write a book. I said, okay. And so I was like, well, let's just use your own story.
And it's been quite a year. Frighteningly, Wade's grandma got sick with the virus.
He's doing fine.
Then, wonderfully, his brand new baby sister arrived.
He's pretty.
So he wrote about that too.
I can't wait to be a big brother so I can give her lots of kisses and hugs.
Wade Through the Pandemic describes all the ups and downs of a kid hurt and confused by what's going on, but hanging in there with those he loves. And of course, for wearing his mask, he gets a bowl of ice cream.
What flavor?
Oreo.
Now that's a happy ending.
Onion.
Kevin Tibbles.
Oreo.
Now that's a happy ending. Kevin Tibbles, NBC News.
Sounds like a good read. That's nightly news for this Thursday. Thank you for watching, everyone. I'm Lester Holt. Please take care of yourself and each other. Good night. Hey, NBC News viewers. Thanks for checking out our YouTube channel.
Bonjour, voici les résultats de notre recherche sur la didactique et la pédagogie. Pour commencer, nous avons défini les mots enseigner, apprendre et former. Alors au départ, pour nous, le mot enseigner, ça voulait dire transmettre un savoir. D'après la définition du Petit Larousse, c'est faire apprendre une science, un art, une discipline à quelqu'un, à un groupe, le lui expliquer en lui donnant des cours, des leçons. En fait, le professeur possède un savoir et le transmet. Apprendre pour nous, c'était acquérir un savoir. Acquérir par l'étude, par la pratique, par l'expérience, une connaissance, un savoir-faire, quelque chose d'utile, d'après la définition du Petit Larousse. En fait, c'est la création par le professeur de conditions.